I honestly had a surprising amount of fun with the Monster of Peladon, and I found it to be a really enjoyable and well-paced story. At 6 parts long, I was surprised that this serial never once bored me. I just enjoyed seeing the Doctor and Joe in this setting and constantly doing something that progressed the overall story. There are probably some scenes that could have been cut out, or elements of this story that could have been removed in order to make this a 4-part serial, but I didn't find that to be a necessary thing in order to make this serial more enjoyable because it's fun. First of all, I quite like the Doctor and Sarah Jane in this one. This series has been a little bit mixed in how it portrays Sarah Jane, but she works well in this one, and I did like seeing her do stuff that affected the actual story and its outcomes.
The Citadel of Peladon, Sarah. One of the most interesting...
Oh, no, it isn't. Is it, Doctor?
No, not exactly.
No, it's not your precious citadel at all. It's another rotten, gloomy old tunnel.
Well, with the scanner still on the blink, there was no way I could really check.
There's more than the scanner on the blink.
The chemistry between our two leads is pretty good. It doesn't feel quite as authentic as what we had in the previous 2 series with Joe, but it's miles ahead of Season 8, for example. On the whole, yeah, they do work for me in this story, and I enjoy the time that we get to spend with them. I also liked returning to Peladon. It's a very fun setting for a story to take place. Even though neither of the Peladon stories have blown me away, there's something about the atmosphere of them that I'm really drawn towards. That was true for the first story, and it remains true for this one. I honestly wouldn't mind if the modern series of the show returned to Peladon because it's just an enjoyable place to tell your story. And there are some elements within this serial that are handled quite nicely. For one thing, we're dealing with the rights of workers, specifically miners in this case, even though the miners look admittedly ridiculous. And I think that element is integrated within this story quite well. It feels very natural and absolutely informs the motivations of characters and what they're doing.
If talks fail, Gebek, we fight.
There will be no fighting. Now, you will all wait for me here. When I've spoken to the Queen, we'll talk again.
Gebek's a good man, but he's too patient.
I also appreciate how quick the Doctor is to stick up for the miners, saying the line,
When miners have to take up arms to protect their rights, they probably have their reasons. I'd like to know what those reasons are.
It's obviously still a very relevant thing all these years later. Workers' rights, I mean, who doesn't care about that, right? It obviously affects a lot of people, and I think it's utilized within this story in an entertaining and intriguing way. I also really like seeing the Doctor in stories like this where he does stick up for people who are not in positions of power. It's just essential Doctor Who, really.
Promise him a better way of life for his miners and see that they get it. You've got to convince your people that the Federation means a better way of life for everybody. Not just for a few nobles at court.
We also have some very interesting stuff which has to do with Sarah Jane and the Princess of Peladon in this one, and we touch on gender roles of Peladon, and it's used as a proxy for our own world. It's really quite basic stuff, to be honest, but it did add a little bit of flavor to it, and it gave Sarah Jane something to do. So it's not incredible by any means, but I think it works here well enough.
We have the greatest admiration for... But he has no title. He's only a miner.
There's nothing only about being a miner, Your Majesty, any more than there was about being a girl.
Alpha Centauri is back, the character we all know and maybe love, and that character does look and sound completely ridiculous, but I have to be honest, that didn't bother me at all.
Alpha Centauri.
It is! It's the Doctor!
Alpha Centauri, my dear fella. What a very well-timed entrance.
It's like a miracle, Doctor! All these years, and you haven't changed a bit!
Neither of you, my dear fella. A touch of grey around the tentacles, perhaps, but still the same old Alpha.
Before I get to spoilers, I will say that this story is very much something that you've probably seen before. When we start to get more information about the situation on Peladon, you begin to see some really familiar elements in terms of the structure of why these events are actually happening. Although it's nothing new, it still worked serviceably for me, and I continued to be engaged with the events of the episode. And I'm reviewing this story over 45 years later, so perhaps it was a little more original when it was first aired. That's entirely possible, I recognize that, but I couldn't say for sure. We do encounter the Ice Warriors within this story, and I actually really appreciated that. This definitely isn't a full Ice Warriors serial, but they still have a noteworthy role to play, and I think that putting them in here added the extra element this story needed to sustain a 6-part runtime, because without them it probably would have dragged a bit.
I am not concerned with the situation here on Peladon. One thing concerns me, and one thing only. The Federation must have the trisilicate it needs.
Yes, but it's the situation on Peladon that is stopping you getting the trisilicate.
So skip to the time as shown on screen if you want to avoid the spoilers, because I am going to go into a small spoiler section. You have been warned. So we do encounter Agador in this story, and for reasons I can't explain, I kind of love this character. Even though he isn't really a character, he's just a lovable beast.
Come on, Agador, old chap. That's no way to greet an old friend. You remember me, surely?
I don't think he does, Doctor.
He and I used to be the greatest of friends. Agador! Agador!
And I don't really have an explanation for it. There's a quality to him that is really endearing, and I actually didn't remember that Agador had shown up before until the doctor started singing him a lullaby, and it immediately all came back to me.
That's better. You remember me now, don't you, old chap?
Even though these reviews are coming out weekly, I'm actually watching the episodes at a slow rate currently. I just happen to be ahead on the reviews. And I'm just busy because, I'm in college at the moment, and obviously, hey, when I actually wrote this review, let's just say that the global pandemic had not quite gotten to us. So yeah, there's lots of things taking up my time, which contributes to how these reviews come out and when I watch and basically write the reviews of the episodes. But that's just a side thing. The actual point is that I enjoyed seeing Agador, and I was honestly a little bit sad to see him die. That upset me a little bit, and even though he's not a real character, but whatever, I didn't like seeing him die. I was attached to him just as this lovable beast. I liked him. Overall, this is a really enjoyable story that managed to entertain me consistently for 6 parts. It's quite well paced and has a great balance of all its elements that feel like they help to justify this serial's length. I enjoyed the main characters quite a bit, and the setting of the story added to that enjoyment. Though there was nothing fantastic about this one, it just managed to come together in all the right ways to make a fun episode that never bored me. This is a pretty good story, and I'm going to give The Monster of Peladon a rating of 7.25 out of 10. If you join me again this coming Sunday, then I'll be bringing you a review of Planet of the Spiders, the final story in Jon Pertwee's fantastic run as the Doctor. I can't wait to bring you my thoughts on Doctor Who's 3rd ever attempt at a regeneration serial. I'd love to know what you think about this story, so feel free to leave your thoughts down below in the comments. I'm more than happy to have a conversation, but if not, that is absolutely fine by me. Just know that I appreciate your time here today, and with that said, thank you very much for watching, take care, and have a lovely week.